All right, guys. Well, here we are. This is going to be a relatively short video in response to a hip hop artist called DaBaby. He has come under fire recently because he said disparaging remarks about gay people. A lot of people deem that homophobic, and he propagated misinformation about HIV and AIDS. And first and foremost, I want to say this so you don't think it's that kind of video. I hate the era that we're living in with PC culture and cancel culture and everybody getting so easily offended. It's ridiculous. That's not how we were raised, where people would get offended and then collectively essentially bully people until they got canceled. That didn't happen pre-internet. I guess it happened in Salem when they would hang witches, but that's a pretty extreme example of that. But what I'm saying is that cancel culture is relatively new. So I don't like that. That's not why I'm making this video. That's not the point of it. I had never heard of DaBaby before, probably because his name is so absurd. It's like, I mean, I guess if I was looking through a playlist, I would just automatically be like, that guy raps about formula. I'm good. And I probably wouldn't listen to it. But I did listen to it, and I got to be honest, I do like some of his music. I think he's clearly a talented guy. He's very big in hip hop right now. You know, with the mumble rap trends and everything that has come out in the last 5 years, I pretty much am stuck in like the 90s to mid 2000s, and newer stuff I don't listen to too much. But I did listen to it with an open mind, and I did like it. So with that being said, the reason that I'm making this video is, first and foremost, I really do disdain and detest homophobia and people that are hateful towards specific groups of people kind of arbitrarily, because I judge people for how they are. You know, I've never disliked somebody because of the color of their skin or because of who they fuck, unless it's kids or animals. That's a definite exception to that rule. But for the most part, if you're not hurting somebody, I don't really care what you're doing. It's not my business. I'm a heterosexual male. I'm sure a lot of you are like, yeah, right. But I am. And I've always felt solidarity towards the gay community because I'm a heroin addict. I've been a heroin addict for 20 years. I've been marginalized by society, judged, stigmatized, etc. So there's definitely some common qualities between the LGBT community and drug addicts. You know, it's not socially accepted. Well, I mean, shooting heroin's not. Gay stuff is more accepted now. You know, you see it in cartoons. There's like gay people kissing. I've yet to see a cartoon where they're shooting heroin, but I'm not saying that it can't happen. What I'm saying is that I feel some sort of connection to that world. I know I joke about it a lot in my content, but you really got to understand that I did 8 years altogether in prison. And when you're around men, like if you're in the military, I've heard a lot of my friends that have been in the military have said similar, that a lot of humor is like gay stuff, right? Like, I'll suck your dick right here and prove you're gay in front of everyone. That's what I'll do. What's up? A lot of people, what I've heard from OG convicts, a lot of people are fishing. A lot of people are like, yeah, if we butt fucked right now, it would be disgusting. We could butt fuck so hard we'd barf all over the screen right now. Yeah, it'd be great. Oh, we should try it. Yeah, you want to try it? Yeah, I bet you won't. Oh my God, we're doing it. Oh my God, it feels great. Oh, we're gay. That's fishing, right? So I think that some of that does exist in prison, but my friends and I would always joke that way just because we'd be so bored. We're like, yeah, let's bored. Let's joke about sucking each other's dicks right now. And that's what we would do. My response is not to judge him for being what I consider to be homophobic. It's like, whatever. That's him, you know? And really, the way he said it, he says he didn't mean it that way. He did. His response to it on TMZ was weird. I can't, I don't know if I can imitate him, you know, but he's like, yo, you know, that sounds racist. I'm just imitating an old black guy now. And it's not even him. It's like an older black guy. Oh, you know, my gay fans, they classy gay fans. They don't got AIDS or nothing like that. It'd be the movie version, DaBaby Redemption. But I wanted to talk about HIV and AIDS. I know a lot about it because when I was in prison, you guys, some of you know this story. When I was in prison, I shot a lot of heroin because I was a heroin addict. It's not like I got there and I was like, this environment's amazing. This is fun. You know what? I'm going to stop using. You would think common sense would say, I'm in prison for using heroin in the first place. Why would I continue it? A lot of it self-medicating, etc. I don't need to get into the fundamentals of why I was using drugs in prison. It sucks in there. There's people I know that don't even shoot heroin. They're like, you know what? If I was in that situation, I would shoot heroin too. And I'm like, I get you. Thank God you get me. We would shoot heroin in there. I've talked about it before. A gram of heroin in prison, at least in federal prison, was going for $400 a gram. Right now, a gram in Los Angeles is $80. $400. It's an insane markup. People get it in there and people shoot heroin. People do it in makeshift syringes called binkies. They're these little, you make the barrel of it, like a barrel of a syringe with like a clear pen. You get a rubber piece that would come out of like a milk dispenser. And you put it on the other side of it. And you can, it kind of acts as like a, no pun intended, like a suck and push mechanism because there's air trapped in the rubber. And then people sneak needles in. A lot of times they thread it, like you'll have contact visits in prison. People will thread just the point of a syringe in their shoes. And then in visit when the guards aren't looking, people will kind of slide the point of the needle over and thread it in their own shoes. And then they come back to the yard and you can sell it for like $20 for the point. Then people put it together and put it into this makeshift syringe called a binky. I will put a binky as the cover of this video. I think my good friend Seth Ferrante had one drawn for a Vice article or something. He did 21 years in prison, so he saw his fair share of binkies as well, even though he's not a heroin addict. When I was in there, I shot heroin all the time with everybody. It was disgusting. We would be in cells, 10 of us standing around, passing around a binky like it was a joint. There'd still be blood inside of it. It's really weird. Like when you shoot up with the syringe, the blood like blossoms into the barrel, right? A lot of blood comes up. Like your shot like turns red. With a binky, it's much more subtle. Looks like a little teeny crackle, almost like a little red thread. So it looks really weird. Like you have to just like stick the needle in. You'll see like a little thread of blood come up and then you bend the rubber part of the binky in and it pushes the dope inside of you. So we would be like in a cell, 10 of us deep, and we just like, oh, we should probably wash this with water. Oh, you don't have AIDS? I'm going to take your word for it. Yeah, you're in prison. You're a good dude too. All right, cool. And you would just do it. This went on for like a year and a half. I'm just sharing needles with everybody. One time I'm taking a shower. Showers are interesting. I was at Federal Correctional Institution, Victorville in Adelanto, California, which is in the Inland Empire. Very rough prison. Stabbings, people getting smashed off the yard. It was just a horrible environment out in the middle of this fiery desert scape looking pit of nothingness, kind of on the way to Vegas from California. And the way that the showers work is there are these stalls, but they'd have length, not girth. We're talking just length, whammer showers. And you would like walk to the end of it, probably like 6-7 feet long. That's where the shower would be. And they're individual stalls, not group showers. Some other prisons are group showers, like Oxford was like that. Victorville wasn't. So you go in there and you'd like beat off in there and do whatever you're doing. I mean, I wouldn't even shower. I wouldn't even turn the water on. I'd just go in there, beat off, come out with a towel around my neck and be like, yeah, I showered, but I'd be strung out. So of course, you know how it is when you're strung out, you don't shower. I'm just kidding. I showered frequently in prison because they'll literally beat you if you're not hygienic. So one time I'm taking a shower and I'm taking a shower and this paisa. Paisa means a Hispanic guy that's like not a gang member. He's just a Hispanic guy, like the kind of guy that wears snakeskin cowboy boots and, you know, kind of like rancher flannels, shit like that. Those kind of Hispanic dudes. Those are lumped into a category called paisa. This guy barely spoke English. His name was Diablo. He comes up to me, goes, Leone. He's like, do you want a shot? I know what he was talking about. I was probably beating off in my dry shower. And he handed me a binky that was loaded with what he said was China white heroin. I took the binky without even thinking, and I found a vein in my ankle. I shot up, and I started, buying heroin off of this guy, Diablo. Go to his cell, shoot up with him. Sometimes he went first, sometimes I went first. There'd be blood everywhere from us missing veins. You gotta remember, typically on the street, when you use an insulin syringe to shoot heroin, you might use it, 5, 6, 10, 20 times at the most until it gets so dull that it either breaks or it's barbed and you don't use it anymore and you just go get new needles. In prison, you probably use the same needle, thousands of times. And what we would do is we would sharpen it. We would sharpen it with, with match striker or whatever. Sometimes we'd sharpen it, kind of like on the rough concrete out on the yard, whatever. And if it gets clogged and we're out on the yard shooting dope, we would take chest hair and you could kind of, weave that through the syringe and get any blockage out of it. So we had all these like makeshift ways to make it work. Shot up with this guy a number of times, and I had to take a drug class. I think they took some time off. There's the RDAP program that takes a year. This was a different one. I think it took time off, or maybe it lowered your points. I don't remember the reason why I took it. But I was taking this drug class, and they started teaching us about HIV/AIDS. Now, I was so bored in this class that I just started paying attention. Now, I hate to admit this, because I do not consider myself a stupid person. I definitely have made a lot of stupid decisions, but I was very ignorant to HIV/AIDS. I always assumed that if you had HIV, you were like Tom Hanks' character in Philadelphia or something. I don't know why I said that, but I always, I kind of looked at HIV as like, you would be sick, right? If you have HIV, you're sick. You're not going to look well. And that's a very large misconception that I think a lot of people think. I tell people like, yeah, I think I have HIV. And they'd be like, dude, you don't look like you have HIV. I'm like, oh, okay, you're right, I don't. Cool. Let's move on. So for a lot of times, I would kind of like, very rarely would I see somebody so shot out that I wouldn't share a needle with them. But every so often I would. And they'd have like scabs on their faces. I'd be like, oh, that guy, he's probably got the ninja. That's what we would call it, because we said it was the swift killer in the night. Making like a whole video about how HIV misinformation humor's wrong, and there I go doing the same shit. I'm a scumbag. I already had hepatitis C that I contracted probably the first time that I ever did heroin, when I was forced to do it at gunpoint. Covered that dozens of times in different videos and podcasts, but I got Hep C first time I ever did it. So I always had this kind of opinion about it that, well, it can't get that much worse. I already have hepatitis C. The first time that I was diagnosed with it, the doctors that took my blood told me, we will only call you back if you're positive. I was like, okay, cool. So if I don't hear from you, I don't have it. They're like, that's right. I get a phone call a week later. So that was back when I was 18. I thought I had AIDS. I go to the appointment, and they're like, you came up reactive. I was like, oh my God. I was like, had already like rehearsed what my reaction was going to be in the mirror. I was like, can I borrow $100? Do you feel bad for me? And they're like, sir, you came up reactive for hepatitis C. I was like, oh, who cares? Everybody has that. It's free with the dope. I didn't care, because it takes like 30 years to kill you. I'm a creature of instant gratification. If I'm not going to die instantly, shit doesn't seem like a danger to me. And a lot of addicts have poor impulse control and think of things similarly. So once I started taking this class, they told us there was 1,200 men at this compound, at the prison. They told us 150 of those men had HIV. And they're like, if you guys are having butt sex, I look around, a couple guys look guilty. They're like drawing dicks on their binders. Some of you guys are having butt sex. Some of you guys are sharing needles. Some of you guys are getting tattooed. 150 people currently have HIV. Within 1 year, that number will be double, if not tripled. And it got in my head. They started educating us about it, and they started telling us that with new HIV medications, I forget what they're called, retroviral or whatever they're called. I forget what they're called, but the medication therapies that they have now make HIV manageable. HIV is the precursor to AIDS. Once you get AIDS, it attacks your immune system. But if you can prevent HIV from turning into AIDS, you can live a normal life. Now I heard you take 1 pill a day. So I started learning all this stuff about it. And I was like, wait a second. I'm at risk. I still shot up with Diablo that night. But I'm one of those people where if I have problems, if I'm having a herpes outbreak, I don't want it in my mind. I want to just tell everybody about it. I tell people at the grocery store, how's your day going? I'm like, I got a goddamn outbreak again. Genital herpes. They're like, oh. People are always uncomfortable with me because I'm an extremist when it comes to being extroverted. I just tell people my problems. I always have been like that. So I'm walking the track one day with this guy. He's one of the buffest guys in the whole prison. He's huge. And I'm like, I think I have AIDS. He's like, what do you mean you think you have AIDS? I was like, I think I have HIV. I've been sharing with everybody. I'm like the needle sharing slut of Victorville. Do you think I'm going to die soon? And he's like, okay, first of all, it's not that big a deal. And I was like, having AIDS isn't a big deal? He's like, HIV is not a big deal. He's like, I have it. It's like the buffest dude at the prison almost. He was like one of the alpha males in the white car there. So now everything they're telling me on the videos is true. Now I start getting even more terrified about it because it is something that you can't just look at somebody and be like, oh, that guy with the scabs on his face, he's got it. Now anybody potentially had HIV. Furthermore, he's like, yeah, the paisa that you shoot up with all the time, Diablo, he's got it. I was like, what do you mean by that? He's like, what I said, he's got HIV. He's like, and you've been sharing needles with him every day. I was like, I went right up to Diablo, right? I'm in a straight up state of panic. I can hear my heartbeat reverberating. You know how when you really get in some sort of anxiety fit, you can hear your heartbeat like it's a drum beat? It's like boom, 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 boom. And everything feels like the volume's turned down with everything else. It's like your tunnel vision because you're panicking about something. And I went up to him and I was feeling that way. And I asked him, he's like, Diablo, do you have HIV? He's like, they tested me, I come up positive. I was like, they test you and you come up positive? What the fuck, man? He's like, I thought you have. You junkie. You tecato. Tecato is junkie in slang Spanish. I was like, no, I don't have fucking HIV. I do now. Fuck you, Diablo. And I stormed off and I went and I got the shot collar because there is a political structure to prisons. And if you have a problem with another race, you can't just take off on them because then a riot will crack off. And then after all the dust clears, they'll be like, wait, how did this start? Oh, the junkie dude shared a needle with the paisa and then he got mad about it because the guy had HIV. Oh yeah, let's kill that guy. and then I would get killed. So I go to the shot caller and I tell him, I go, hey, look, we've got a major problem with the paisa. He gave me AIDS. And he's like, how did he give you AIDS? He's like, there's only 2 ways that you can get HIV. Butt sex. I was like, whoa, hey, man. He's like, or sharing needles. And he's like, and you sure as fuck shouldn't be sharing needles with another race, because that's one weird politic they have. He's like, don't you know that they're animals? They're filthy? Like, just spouting off some hateful, racist nonsense. So they wouldn't do anything about it. So for 2-3 years, I think I have HIV. I'm convinced. I'm like going to fundraisers. I'm like, yeah, I have it. Do you have any gifts or anything? No, I thought about it all the time. It became this obsessive loop in my mind, because that's how my mind works, right? When I get fixated on something, it loops in my mind. Then I'm playing soccer one day, and I get a rash, right, all over my back, this like blotchy red rash. I go to medical in federal prison. I'm in Wisconsin at this point. And I'm like, yeah, I have this rash on my back. They look it up in a medical encyclopedia, and they're like, well, it can only be about 30 or 40 things, but one of them is HIV rash. Do you have HIV? I was like, oh my God, I have it. I like called people I knew. I'd call girls I like slept with once, like 30 years before. 30, I was like 25 at the time. I called people and I like told my friends, I was like, hey man, oh, how you doing? How is it in there? I'm like, I got AIDS in here. They're like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, can you send me money? They're like, oh, I gotta go. I really thought I had it, and I would tell everybody. I would tell my cellies all the time. I'd be like, I have AIDS. I'd like stomp I'd be throwing like an AIDS tantrum. I really thought I had it. And so I started really researching the virus, the history of it, you know, the origins of it. There's different theories about where it came from. I started learning about how it affected the gay community in the 1980s, San Francisco and New York. I mean, people were dying by this mysterious virus, right? And they don't have a cure for it. They have cured a couple people from it. I think one of the new methods that they have is through, they gave somebody like like a bone transfer. It sounds ridiculous. Yeah. No, I can't make it anymore. I'm getting a bone transfer. Is it marrow transfer? I don't know. But they have cured 1 or 2 people. A baby was born with it, and they were able to make the baby non-reactive after they'd been diagnosed with HIV. So there has been some strides made in the medical community as far as getting the cure. But what has happened in the last couple years is now they have PrEP, which is a medication you can take once a day, and it makes it so that you can't contract HIV, or it substantially decreases the odds. It's like a 0.0000001% chance that you can get it if you take PrEP. And like I said, there's now medications where you can manage it. Now, when I got out of prison, I'd been in there 5 years, and I thought I had it. I was going to get like a tattoo that reflected my pain of having it. And God, it is hot. You can't like be inside and then come out. Anyway, I started dating women when I got out. And I'd tell them the story. I'd be like, look, probably a better chance than not that I've been infected with the virus. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, look, I may have HIV. Like, I don't care. If you have it, I'll have it too. It's fuck. And I'd be like, it happened with like 2 or 3 girls. And I was honest with them. Till finally I got in a long-term relationship, and the girl that I was dating was like, this is silly. Go get tested. And I went to a chronic care specialist, you know, because I was trying to get my hepatitis C treated. Time it was interferon. Now they have Harvoni, and they have these like 90-day treatments. But back in the day, it was interferon, and that stuff is no good if you have underlying mental health issues. It definitely, can propel you in a really bad, dark direction, give you suicidal ideation, stuff that I already have issues with. So I decided to hold off. But when I did see the chronic care specialist, he tested me for HIV, even though I was very apprehensive. I was like, you don't understand. I have a catatonic fear of having it and even being tested, just the anxiety of waiting. I got the blood test done. A week later, he called me. He's like, are you sitting down? I was like, oh, come on, man. I was like, I didn't even practice a response this time. And he's like, you're negative, motherfucker. He said that. I was like, hey, God, this is unprofessional, man. But I didn't have it, and then I've been tested several times since, and I didn't get it, and thankfully so. But since that time, I've met a number of people, or past friends that I have, a lot of people that I know that are gay have it. A lot of people that are IV drug addicts have it. More people have HIV than that I know, than I would have ever imagined before. And I think maybe because I'm so candid and I can be so open about myself and my past, I think a lot of people feel comfortable telling me about it. And honestly, a lot of people that I know that have it are really great people, and it's a very, very, very sad thing. It really is, I think that it's important for people. The reason I did this video in the first place is because I'm trying to get an algorithm with current events. But also, besides that, I think it's important for people to know that there's a lot of misinformation about it. There's a lot of preconceived notions about HIV that are just patently false. It's not a death sentence anymore. And if you're recently, Karina, she's 9 months pregnant right now. So she had to get full panel blood tests multiple times during the pregnancy. And one of the things they test for is HIV. So even recently, I was scared to get the results, right? I've talked to some doctors, and they've said that it can lay dormant and it can show up. So there's always been this catatonic fear with me that at one point it's going to come out of its dormancy and I'm going to be HIV positive. So every time she gets tested, or anytime I get tested, I've been tested several times in the last few years, there's definitely fear associated with it. And I want to say that if you're an IV drug user, and I know a lot of people that watch my content are, if you engage in risky sexual behavior, that's not just limited to if you're homosexual, heterosexual intercourse. Can't believe I just said intercourse. Heterosexual fucking can get you HIV as well. Get tested. Every single person watching this right now, if you haven't had an HIV test in the last year, you should get tested for it, because there's a chance you have it. Unless you're celibate and don't shoot drugs. Just watch my stuff on YouTube. No, I'm not going to do nothing else but this. You want to have sex? Nah. Nope. You can have sex for me. I'll live vicariously through this scumbag. If you've engaged in any behavior, even if you're in a monogamous relationship, people cheat. Get tested. DaBaby, you got some bars. Stop saying hateful stuff about people. I'm not here to scold, but I think it's better not to do that. This is just my opinion. I'm not going to cancel you. I have you on my playlist now. I listen to you. I turn it down when she's around. She's like, oh my God. What are you going to go? What are we going to eat? Chick-fil-A as well? I'm like, I like that. I like that stuff too. I'm not for cancel culture, but I do think it's important to stay educated about HIV and know that it's not a death sentence. And most importantly, because I don't even remember the name of the medications that they have, like retroviral or whatever. I know this. I know one of the reasons that they don't have a cure for HIV yet is because they don't know. There's certain like crevices internally that it hides behind, and it's impossible to find them, and the virus replicates itself. That's why they haven't found a cure yet, but there's a lot of people doing a lot of research trying to find that cure, and I really hope that they do. Like I said, I know some great people that have it, but the largest point is that I was just so ignorant to it before. I didn't realize that people could have it that looked healthy, or that you could even have a normal life with HIV. It's manageable. More people are dying right now from hepatitis C than HIV. Cirrhosis of the liver, which hepatitis C can be a precursor for, is killing more people right now than AIDS is. HIV is just stigmatized so badly. So when a public figure is perpetuating that stigmatization, I think it's important we don't cancel the person outright, but we can combat that misinformation by just encouraging people to get tested. And if you have it, know that you can live a normal, productive life with it. And also people that engage in risky behavior, whether it be IV drug use, whether it be unprotected sex in any capacity, whether that be homosexual or heterosexual, take PrEP, get tested. That's how we eradicate this. That's how we stop it from spreading. Thanks, Dr. Leone. That was 32 minutes I'll never get back. Palabra.